Next, board members, I bring your attention to our agenda. Next up is our general consent calendar. And before we seek a motion to approve, I'm asking if any board members want any items removed. Okay. Board member Lisa Cummins.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just pulling it up here on my screen here. If you just off the top of my head, I wanted to, my computer's slow today. I wanted to pull, I believe it was 4.4. It was the continuation of contracts. And then there was 4.8 and 4.10. 4.2 was new contracts, and then there was is it 4.3? Okay, so it's 4.3. So 4.3, 4.8, and 4.10. Specifically, the Hamilton.
Okay, let's go to 4.3 so we can. So okay. I can track this.
Sure.
Under 4.3 is contract for review. Do you want all of them or part of them?
Part of them.
Which?
So the Gilder Lehrman MOU.
Okay, just one sec. Okay.
I believe that's the only one, unless
okay, and then
someone had.
Then 4.8 and 4.
Yeah.
4.10.
And 4.10.
Equity conference. 4.10 is request for temporary authorizations.
Yes.
Okay.
I had some questions on the letter of authorization,
okay.
The count and everything.
Well, we'll save those, and then we'll
okay.
see if there's any others being pulled. Seeing none, I seek a board member Belknap.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar with those items taken off by member Cummins.
We have a motion and a second. Board member Cannon, any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. We've had 3 items pulled. 4.3, if we go to that one first, the Gilder Lehrman, I believe is how that is said, MOU. Board member Cummins, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes. So in that, I understand that this is coming from New York and that all of the states are implementing this program of inviting the Broadway musical Hamilton to all of the kids in every state. And I understand that there's the historical societies behind that. And I appreciate being an amateur historian wannabe, I should say. I love history and I love the accuracy of history. Hamilton, while it's fun to watch and catchy and very engaging with today's generation, younger generation, I don't know that correct me if I'm wrong, but is the state paying for any of this out of pocket, or is this fully a foundation that's opposite, that's paying for this?
Okay, we'll have the superintendent.
Let's just start with that question first before I go to my next point.
Yes.
So Tamara Burnsides is here who can give you specifics, but the foundation supports a great deal of this, but the legislature, you might recall that they also provided us with $350,000 target at providing this opportunity for students. And I also just want to mention it's not for every student in the state, so you're really reaching out to underrepresented populations who may not otherwise get the opportunity to see it. So students living in rural areas, students living in poverty. So there's criteria for students to come and see this performance, and then there are other activities as well. And in terms of the money, who's paying for it, Tamara Burnsides could come in. Why don't you come to the chair, have her come to the table.
Tamara, please come up and we'll have a mic, and will you state your title? And okay, we need to turn that. The mic needs to, board member
This is your
Belknap.
debut.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you tell I'm a first timer? I'm Tamara Burnside, and I am a BTS specialist here at the state office, and also working with EduHam part-time. And I do have some information that if I could pass out, then might.
Yes, please do. But the question was,
Okay.
let's go back to the question again, and then
The question is, what portion of the state's money is being brought to bring in Hamilton, first and foremost? And I understand it's under legislative appropriations. Is that?
Yes, it's not being spent to bring in Hamilton specifically. Hamilton, an American musical, is coming to Salt Lake City.
Right, next
And-
May.
Yeah, in April and May.
Yeah.
And there's the Hamilton Education Program that's gone on in New York City and Chicago and other touring cities. And it's reached out to students and given them an opportunity to find out about the Founding Fathers. But speaking of money, so there is $350,000 that's legislated money, and then there is an additional about $500,000 that's coming from local donors to support this education program for students. And do you want me to tell you a little bit about the program itself?
Yes, please.
Okay. First off, it's a partnership with the Gilder Lehrman American History Institute and with the Utah Department of Heritage and Arts and Utah Board of Education. And there's a lot associated with it, but the EduHam itself, as you receive this information, it's being targeted to 11th grade history students from underserved populations. So Gilder Lehrman has all their programming has been to Title I students. And so here in Utah, we're looking at 40% free and reduced lunch to be eligible to come to the musical. And along with that, we are looking at 2,300 students that would get to come and participate in the matinee. But in order to be eligible, history teachers have to sign up with Gilder Lehrman to become a part of their History Institute. And with that, they're given primary source documents, a curriculum, but not everybody's going to get to participate. And so we're really trying to target those ones that would not have the opportunity to come to such a marvelous event. It will be life-changing for them. But along with the student, the matinee itself, students have to also come up with a student performance piece. It could be a rap, a song, a piece of poetry, all about the Founding Fathers. And so they're actually using what they learn to create art. And the day of the performance, students will come and they'll share. Only some will be selected, and that's by Gilder Lehrman, to perform. And then there will be a question and answer period with the cast members. And then Salt Lake County is has offered the Salt Palace, where all students will go over and lunch will be provided for them. Then they'll come back in the afternoon for the matinee performance. And so what's being offered to areas across the state is anyone who's 50 miles away from downtown Salt Lake. Their lodging will be covered overnight, food, let's see, I'm forget. Okay. Anyway, everything's
transportation,
covered for
food truck.
them to be able to come. There's no obligation that the state board has towards this. And schools that are local that are selected will also have their busing costs covered. In addition to this great opportunity, which I believe that it really is, to learn first history and to really connect with students that might not ever be that enthused to read about history, but to learn it in another way. There's many events that are associated with Hamilton, and they're under the name the New Nation Project. And so there's an essay contest for civic engagement for high school students, where they will write their representatives, their legislators, about an issue they want to change through the political process by influencing, educating their elected officials. So that's quite a great thing to get students involved in. There's also going to be a Founding Fathers theme for the Utah Commission on Civic and Charter Education. Character Education, I said that wrong. There will be an exhibit that runs for the full year up at the state capitol on Who Tells Your Story. And it's all about, Hamilton was a prolific writer, and that's how we know about him. And people throughout time have had the compulsion to write. And so students will be able to see this exhibit from everything from prehistoric petroglyphs in Utah that tell a story about Native Americans to spy hop student-produced documentaries. And there will be public library exhibits that are statewide. And also, when we bring students up, the night before this great opportunity, there's going to be a higher education event up at the Capitol building where students will have dinner, they'll see presentations, but the biggest thing is we're going to have college recruiters from across the state meeting with these kids. This is a target audience they don't always get the opportunity to reach. And so they're going to bring swag and encourage students to go on to college. And 11th grade, perfect age. And those are some of the events that are associated with it.
We have a question, Board Member Hanson. I didn't see your light. Oh, there it is. Apologize.
So, question. It says it's going to serve 2,300 students from underserved populations, but then down here it says schools which are chosen to participate will be charged $10 per student before the performance. Is
Yes.
that money going to be coming from the schools? Is it going to be coming from the students themselves? Because some students could probably afford $10, but some students
Okay.
really cannot.
Very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. It's going to cost them a Hamilton. Kind of interesting. But that is what, in Gilder Lehrman's wisdom with working with the Rockefeller Center and the Lin-Manuel Miranda's Foundation, that's what they decided upon. Because, you know, sometimes when things are free, we don't appreciate their true value, and so there's a little bit of buy-in that we want students to have so that they're engaged with it. And that's going to be up to the school, the teacher, if they want to seek donations to cover that, or whatever they want to do. But there is the cost of $10 per student. But it's how that's paid, I think, is up to those local entities. And this is all about choice. This is an opportunity, and unfortunately, from what we've seen of how many schools have signed up with Gilder Lehrman, they're not all going to get to participate, and they're not all going to fit that unique target audience. Yes, Spencer?
Well, can we have just a follow up, and then
Okay.
we'll go to
And I
Board Member
understand that
Stokes.
concept. I just don't want kids left behind because they can't pay. And so I just want to say that publicly. I know it's left up to the schools and the teachers, but I would like everyone to know that's how I feel about it, that I don't want kids left behind and not able to attend because they can't pay.
Board Member Stokes.
So I'll jump in from the very beginning.
Good.
This came about because several of us saw the production in 2016, and Speaker Hughes caught the vision of how this could teach a new generation of youth about our founding fathers and actually get them excited and involved. We, Gilder Lehrman, didn't want to come and do this in the state of Utah for all of the reasons that are actually being discussed here. They didn't want to come and do it in the state of Utah because there weren't a lot of Title I schools, and they just felt like our population didn't merit it. But when the legislature stepped forward with a $450,000 commitment to do this, and when they got the commitment from, and then used that to get the commitment from Gilder Lehrman. And it's interesting, Gilder Lehrman, or two, Mr. Lehrman and Mr. Gilderman, they started collecting early original documents of the founders. And they didn't know each other was doing that, but they merged their libraries together. And so if you go to the Gilder Lehrman Foundation page, it's an amazing resource for students, and it teaches history in a much different way and gets young people excited and involved. With regard, Linda, to the $10, everyone who participates knows that they're going to have to come up with the $10, and that can be done in any way. It doesn't have to be through the school. They can go raise the money. They can go ask for donors. But these tickets. Currently, if you were to go try to get this ticket, it's a $600 ticket. If you get it in advance, it's a $1,200 to $2,000 ticket if you get it, a week before. So the fact that they're allowing students to have this kind of access is absolutely incredible. So the state kicked in $450,000. Private funds are being contributed. I know that recently the Miller Foundation just committed $75,000 to it. So there's two programs being run. There's a Gilder Lehrman Foundation program being run, and then there's another program being run through the state legislature with essay contests. So there's kind of two programs running. But this is a remarkable experience to actually engage young people who aren't engaging currently with our founders in a new and interesting way. I had the opportunity to go to Chicago. I don't know if you talked about that experience, but I had the opportunity to go to Chicago and watch them run this program. And what what is remarkable is the theater is filled with high school students that are 17 to 18. And by the way, every parent has to sign a waiver. No student can go to this without a parental
Because
waiver.
there's vulgarity in the words and the language.
We counted them. We know exactly how many F words
Yeah.
there are in this program.
Yes.
We know how many lewd gestures there are in this
Yes.
program. And thus, all of that will be outlined in the parental release form. So all of those F words will be outlined. We'll say this is how many it contains. This is how many lewd gestures. This is the reference of that.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is that Alexander Hamilton himself wrote about this. So the Reynolds papers, which Alexander Hamilton actually released so he wouldn't be blackmailed, detailed the affair that he had. And that's all covered in this. And it does make you think. I mean, I thought that all of our founders were absolutely 100% pure and above reproach. Silly me
Well, they're
that I didn't understand that. But I'm sitting in the first time I saw it, which was in December of 2016. I am absolutely moved to tears by this thing, but I'm also learning, oh my gosh, I didn't know that happened. And I'm 53, so I can only imagine what a 20-year-old is
So
dealing with.
Let me just bring this in just a little bit, and I appreciate where this is at. What's before us is not the whole program and this whole journey and everything that's happened. I think that all this history is good of how we got here, but I just want to remind the board what we're talking about here is our MOU, a memorandum of understanding that we need to discuss today. And
I'd move that we approve the memorandum of understanding on the Hamilton project.
we have a motion. We have a second now.
Chair, I still
Yes.
had some comments that I wanted to make.
Yeah,
and if
I
we're
want to
gonna
get
jump
to
over
that, but I
this,
just
then
want to remind, we're talking about the play and getting down into the weeds on a lot of which is that part isn't as much as what is before us, which is the MOU. But board member Cummins, I want to hear your comments, but I just wanted to make sure people know that everyone that's here, that the reason we're having this is because we have an MOU before us. So, board member Cummins, did you had more you wanted to add because your light was on?
Well, I don't know that it matters anymore. I want to be careful that we're promoting the history that we want, that truth be taught. We have so much misunderstanding of history on like board member Stokes said. You know, we don't know everything, and we're not teaching everything according to how it happened. We're not using original sources. And Hamilton was a true politician. And even though he helped write the Federalist Papers, he did go back and rescind everything that he stood for in the Federalist Papers. You know, this is not somebody I want to think this was great because we expand government. He was very much for expanding government and expanding on a national bank and so on and so forth. And, you know, is that covered? Are the students knowing that he was a true and blue politician? Are we really teaching about what happened and not just a musical that shares vulgarity?
Okay, so
I want to make
this
sure.
musical is based on Ron.
Hey,
Oh,
you want your
I'm
last?
sorry.
Okay, one sec.
Sorry.
Did you have something? Okay. All right. Hang on one
Okay,
sec. This is board comment side.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
not to defend a program or anything
Okay.
here. Is there any additional board comment?
I just think we have a responsibility to teach truth, to be careful what we put our name on and what we promote. And just because something is popular doesn't mean we should just automatically jump on the bandwagon. We have a responsibility to our students to teach them the truth. And this is what they're begging for today. And with the social studies standards, I think it glosses over the true intent of history and the original intent of history. And I think that's incredibly important. And I just want to be very cautious and make sure that history is taught correctly.
Okay. And not seeing any other discussions, so let's vote on the motion to approve the MOU. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Will the nays? I have 3. Do you have the 3? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
And you're welcome to turn that light off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up was that we pulled from the consent was 4.8, the equity conference. Board member Cummins, did you want to speak to that? There's 4.8 and 4.10 that were
Yes.
both
Can
pulled.
I just have, is it Mommy? Mommy? Sorry.
Okay, we'll invite
How do
Moni
you
up.
pronounce your name?
You have a question?
Momi, thank you. Yes. Could you
Well,
just
if
give
you-
me some more clarity on the education equity, what this is going to include?
I'm happy to do that, Board Member Cummings. My name is Momi Tu'ua, and I am the Equity Specialist in Student Advocacy Services here at USBE. Several years ago, we had a conference like this, and it was discontinued. And in the 3 years that I've been here, there's always been a question as to when this conference was coming back. And this conference initially was provided for school counselors, but we are broadening this based on the response that we've gotten from educators, from site administrators, as well as LEA leadership. And so I had sent out some surveys regarding this need, and I just wanted to highlight some of the topics or focuses that will be included in this conference. But before I do, I also want to say that recommendations for presentations are also coming from our Access Committee in response to particular needs that have been expressed within their committee. We sent out a survey regarding refugee students and the supports that they need, and asking educators and administrators the confidence level in facilitating the supports to these students. And between 40 to 60% of the responses were that they did not feel adequate in providing those wraparound supports to our refugee students. Also, with our board action regarding the early college access for diverse populations, we have had a response statewide in what can we do in implementing best practices so that our diverse populations have the access, increased access to our AP, IB honors, and our concurrent enrollment courses. And Garrett Rose will be talking to the Standards and Assessment Committee tomorrow about this in greater detail. Looking at English language learners in relation to course taking patterns towards not just college access, but college retention. That has been a subject that has come up many times from our LEAs. Looking at civil rights issues and laws and policies and best practices has been a request from our LEA leadership. And so these are some of the details or focuses that we have, where we've received feedback and requests from our leadership and educators statewide.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Any other questions? This was on the consent to move this forward. It was polled, but to move this forward, I'd seek a motion for approval. Board Member Lear.
I move that we support this conference and move it to the board for a vote.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, voting was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next was 4.10, request for temporary authorization. Board Member Cummings, did you want to speak to this?
I
please?
did. So if Leah is here and also Travis, but I was looking at the letter of authorization, the count, and I was a little concerned with the high amount of numbers that are unlicensed that are going through programs right now. There's about 101 instructors in these various schools that have asked for continuation. How many, I'd like to know how many, where they're at in that programming, in their programs, selective programs. How many are just bachelors? I know that there's one that, there's a group of unlicensed professionals with no programming, that are not involved in any programs, I should say 38, if I remember correctly. How many of those are special needs, and how many of those are not qualified to have that licensure yet and not going through a program, or who are going through a program, where they're at in that program, and what kind of decisions they're making, because this will affect students for the rest of their education based on how early these educators are integrated with these special needs students. So I'm concerned about that group especially. I understand with the what was it, the APT, did I get that correct? That underqualified or unlicensed teachers, they can have a bachelor's to teach, and that's okay if they're in their selective fields. With CTE, I'm okay with that. But especially with special needs, if we're having underqualified teachers that are not in a program or in very early stages of a program, I'm concerned on what decisions they're making towards each student. Does that make sense?
There's a few questions.
There's a lot of questions
there, and then some concerns. So hopefully you can sort those out if you'd state name, title, all of that good stuff.
Diana Sudreth, Director of Teaching and Learning. So just a little explanation about letters of authorization. They are requested by LEAs when they have a need to fill a position that they don't have a qualified individual to fill. That almost sounds like they're just putting anybody in front of kids, but that isn't the case. So when we say that they're not enrolled in a program, it might be that they are on an ARL or an APT. They might be getting local support for that. Sometimes we use letters of authorization when we put a student, or it's not we, when the LEA puts a student teacher into a teaching position. So instead of student teaching, then they are actually a teacher, but they haven't completed their program yet, and so that would be the case there. It's important to know that the numbers are consistent with what they have been in previous years, so this isn't a spike in the number of letters of authorization. It's pretty much the same from year to year. They are usually temporary, and then the teachers or the people work towards the full licensure, or they're replaced the next year when the district is able to find somebody in order to do that. A lot of your questions we can answer, but not right now. So if we could kind of capture some of those, we can look up and see exactly how many are in classrooms with students with disabilities or in other kinds of specific situations as you are asking for, but right now I can't tell you anything in more detail than what's on the paper.
So I can add, as far as the students who are the teachers who may not be licensed yet, who are on letters of authorization, who are working with students with special needs, we have two unique programs in the state of Utah that we support to be able to increase the pipeline for teachers for students with disabilities. And one of them is we bring in paraprofessionals who have been working with students with disabilities, have had experience with students with disabilities, who their school district or their charter school thinks that they would make great special education teachers. We have a program that we work with two different universities to be able to support those paraprofessionals becoming licensed teachers. So they have experience. They've been supervised by special education teachers. The school district or the charter school then hires a mentor specifically to work with them to be able to move them into that teaching position while they're in a program. So that's one unique thing we do in Utah. And the other unique thing we do, we have a program called Running Start for all brand new special education teachers, all teachers who are on letters of authorization, who get jobs, who haven't finished their programs, and it includes all those teachers who have been paraprofessionals. During this summer, we do an entire week, 40 hours of very intense training in how to set up a classroom management, specially designed instruction, just like it's titled, to give those teachers a real running start into being ready on the first day of school to be able to provide specially designed instruction to students with disabilities. And we invite all new teachers, all teachers on letters of authorization, including those who have been paraprofessionals and those, like you're saying, who had bachelor's degree already in some other field, maybe even in general ed. And are choosing to become special education teachers. And then we provide coaching for them throughout their entire first 2 years, which they may finish their program in that 2 years. They may finish it after the first year. They may not finish it till the second year, but we provide trained coaches to mentor them through that process to be able to increase the pipeline and decrease the shortage. Is that helpful?
A little bit. When they sign off or on a assessment, a special needs assessment, and forgive my arrogance on this a little bit, but is there a mentor behind them to double check that assessment? I'm looking for a word.
To ensure that it's accurate.
To make sure it's accurate, so that there's no harm in that student going forward, or they're put in the wrong program or the wrong testing, because that kind of error
important.
could be huge.
Yes. Yeah. So they actually wouldn't even be doing assessments if they didn't have the credentials to do that in the first place.
Okay.
So a special education coordinator or the team lead or most often the school psychologist would actually be providing that service, but they need to learn how.
Right.
And so,
but with the limited amount of psychologists, school psychologists, is that always being caught or no?
I don't know that I can affirmatively speak to whether that's always being caught or not.
Okay.
I know that I get questions about it. So LEA directors and special education coordinators call me and ask me what is the best way to move forward in the situation that we're in. So I know they're seeking consultation. I can't answer whether or not it's always happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Lear.
I had a question, Leah. Is this intensive summer training only for teachers of students with disabilities? Not for all teachers, even though all teachers deal with students with disabilities?
Yes, it is. We provide this specifically for special education teachers. Okay. It actually started with a federal grant two SIG grants ago, so about 10 years ago, and Utah chose to continue it after the 5 years of the grant period because LEAs felt it was so successful.
Thanks.
roll. Okay, not seeing any other comment. This was pulled from our consent calendar, and my computer just turned off. Oh man.
I'll make a motion.
Hang on. Well, okay, we need a. Yeah.
I'll make
you
a
make the motion.
I move that we accept these letters of authorization.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. Okay, that concludes all of our consent items.